If
Well,
I
you
had
know that
told
next year you could be facing a primary challenge, right? There's talk that Ivanka Trump is interested in running against you. What do you think of that?
but who can't? I mean, all of us are elected. Every single one of us can be primaried. Every single one of us can have a primary challenge.
No,
I'm
I
not
know
the
that, but
owner
what
of the
would you
Florida
think if
Senate
it
seat.
were Ivanka Trump? What would you think if it were she?
I like Ivanka Trump very much. We work together very well. I've never heard her say that. And bottom line is that whether she's a resident of Florida, any resident of Florida who's 30 years of age can run to be the Republican nominee, can run to be the U.S. senator as an independent or as a Democrat. When I run for re-election, like any other senator, you have to earn the right to continue to serve the people of your state. I'm very proud of what I've done over the last 6 years, and especially over the last 4, working with President Trump during the campaign. We'll talk about that. We'll point that out to people when the time comes to do that. But none of us are entitled to run unopposed. People have a right to run against you. And I've always anticipated that a Senate race in Florida is going to be tough. I've done it twice, and they were both tough.
Would it be weird, though, that you've been very loyal and very supportive of President Trump if his daughter were to run against you? You're quite right. She has not indicated that. It does seem to be in the rumor mill, though. But you're ready regardless, I guess, right?
Well, I think you have to be ready regardless, no matter who you are. Yeah. No matter where you are. I mean, and there's every state, every 6 years, you elect a senator by going to voters. And you have to go to them and say, this is what I've done. If you send me back, this is what I'll do. And they make a judgment, both within your party and ultimately within the general electorate. But that's what I've always thought when you decide to run for re-election, especially in a state like Florida that's so competitive. Of course, these are all going to be tough races. I'm always known that. And, the last time I ran for re-election, I filed, 6 days before the deadline. That was pretty tough to put together, but we were successful. So, when the time comes, we'll have a great campaign. We'll have a great story to tell. But I still have 2 years left in this term, and I have a lot of work to do. But I won't be able to do as much because I'll be sitting on the floor of the U.S. Senate in a stupid impeachment trial so that these guys can make their base happy.
You still feel that way, Senator? Stupid?
Yeah, more than ever. It's look, first of all, it's not even constitutional. It's logic tells you that, okay? The automatic consequence of impeachment and trial, if you're convicted, the automatic consequence of it is you're removed from office. That's the automatic consequence of this process. How can you put someone through a process where the automatic consequence of it is impossible? You can't remove Donald Trump from office. He's not in office. The second is, we've got all these important issues in this country. We've heard all these months and years about how the virus needs to be dealt with, and I agree. The economy's been hurt by it. I agree. National security threats, nominations, all these things we should be working on. And instead, we're going to spend from 1 o'clock till 7 or 8 p.m., 6 nights a week for as long as it takes on an impeachment trial. And they're going to tell you we can walk and chew gum. When they were doing the first impeachment trial a year ago, they wouldn't let us move nominations. They wouldn't let us move legislation. They said they didn't want the day distracted. So, that was their view of it then. The third is it stokes the fire. This is a country that's already deeply divided. Politics has become very emotional. People literally hate each other in this country over politics. And now on top of that fire, we're going to pour all of this gasoline and really get it going hotter. And the last point I would make is it is pretty typical in the third world that after someone's out of office, they lose, they leave. The party that takes power then prosecutes them. It happens all over the world. And that's the precedent we're creating here now, that we're creating the precedent where we are going to have future political majorities in Congress pursuing the previous president, maybe even threatening that president while they're in office, that they're going to impeach him after they leave if they don't do this or they don't do that. So there's a lot of reasons why this is stupid and a terrible idea for the country. This actually isn't just a waste of time. It's going to hurt America.
But isn't that Donald Trump's doing, though, Senator? Do you think that he provoked that crowd when he was saying these are the events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from our great patriots? That
Donald Trump is a private citizen.
There should be some punishment. Do you think he should be punished for those remarks?
Yeah. So if someone makes those remarks, he's a private citizen. So he's now the reason why we have impeachment is the following. You can't charge a president. So you have to remove them from office, and then they're subject to criminal penalty. That's why Ford had to pardon Nixon, because after he resigned, he could have still been prosecuted. If the president did something that rises to that level, as these folks so strongly believe, then the criminal justice system and the civil system is in place to pursue.
Nothing like Marco Rubio continuing to chauffeur Donald Trump, even as his own daughter may very well cost him his Senate seat in 2 years. There is pathetic and then there's whatever this is. And yet that's the entire Republican Party in a nutshell. The more Trump destroyed the party, the more desperate they are to vie for his approval. And that culminated into the guy inciting an insurrection at the US Capitol, where those very senators were at a joint session of Congress, and yet still the Marco Rubios of the world will come on national TV and carry water for him. The mob was chanting "Hang Mike Pence." They had plans to assassinate members of Congress. But sure, apparently the insurrection was no big deal. And so now, Rubio is pretending that he's just oh so annoyed that he has to deal with an impeachment trial when clearly there's all this work to be done. And yet, shockingly, there wasn't a peep out of Rubio about the virus when it was exploding throughout the country, while Trump was pushing for schools and restaurants to reopen, and for people to take off their masks, and for his supporters to pack into rallies. The virus wasn't a big deal back then, but now, while there's a Democratic president, well, suddenly Rubio doesn't have time to hold a criminal president accountable anymore, because don't you all realize there's a virus out there? Funny how his perspective seems to have changed somewhere between January 19th and January 21st. Now, as for the trial itself, Rubio says that it's not constitutional, which is wholly untrue. The Constitution decidedly does not say that you can't hold a Senate trial for a president who was impeached when he was in office. And beyond that, there's actually already precedent to do exactly that. In 1876, Secretary of War William Belknap was investigated by the House for corruption. Just minutes before the House was set to vote on his impeachment, Belknap raced to the White House and handed his resignation to President Ulysses Grant. The House went ahead and impeached him anyway, and the Senate proceeded to have a trial. A majority voted to convict, but not the 2/3 required, so he was acquitted. But the point is that it occurred. And I get that Republicans like to rewrite the rules as they go, but try as they may, they're not going to be able to change history. Also, Rubio pretends that the only issue at hand here is removing Trump from office, and so because he's already out of office, the issue is moot. He's either being willfully disingenuous, or he's really not smart, because the issue undoubtedly is not removing Trump from office. The issue is A, holding someone accountable for inciting an insurrection at the Capitol and showing that there will be consequences for the next person who tries to stage a coup to steal an election, and B, it's to bar him from ever running for federal office again. And I'm pretty sure the Senate is well within its rights to do that, considering, again, how Trump whipped his supporters into a frenzy over a bogus stolen election claim and inspired his supporters to storm the Capitol and try to assassinate the vice president. Call me old-fashioned, but I tend to think barring that guy from holding office is probably a good idea. Rubio then surfaces the tired talking point that an impeachment trial will divide the country. Yes, it's the trial that will divide the country, not the act of inciting insurrection, not spending months upon months pretending that our free and fair elections were rigged by some nefarious deep state forces, not brainwashing half the country into thinking that Democrats had votes hidden in suitcases, or that voting machines were switching votes, or that dead people were casting ballots. No, all of that is totally fine. It's the trial that's going to divide people. Got it. Imagine applying that same logic to a courtroom. Yes, Your Honor, my client did kill someone, but we couldn't possibly hold a trial. Think about how divisive that would be. All you lawyers out there, try the Marco Rubio approach next time you walk into a courtroom and let me know how that goes. Although something tells me that I already know. So look, the Florida Republican will continue carrying water for a despot who incited a mob who tried to kill Rubio's own colleagues because he is as pathetic as Donald Trump was corrupt. But his desperate attempts to absolve Trump not only look pathetic now, they'll look even more pathetic if it turns out that he spent his last term in office defending a family that would ultimately take his job from him. But then, pathetic really is what Marco does best. While you're here, please check out my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. I take a deep dive into the top stories of the week, and I also interview major players in the world of politics, like Kamala Harris, Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Pete Buttigieg, Katie Porter, Al Franken, Cory Booker, Jamie Harrison, Mary Trump, and many more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.